Hello and welcome to Boss Lady on Air, the interactive talk show. I'm your host, Miss Shay Boss Lady from BossLadyEmpire.org, the pretty vegan goddess, and you're watching Boss Lady on Air.
Wait a minute, she trying to do the boss lady pose? Apart, point your hand out so you quit it. You should already know. Let's say hello with me. Boss lady pose. Wait a minute, she trying to do the boss lady pose? See, apart, point your hand out so they quit it. You should already know. Let's say hello with me. Boss lady pose. Boss lady pose.
Awesome. Now I'm joined with a really special guest all the way from Australia. So hello to all the Australians watching. And I'm actually in the UK and it is 11 a.m. here. I'm going to have my speaker introduce herself, let her know who she is, let you guys know who she is, what it is she does, and even what time it is in Australia right now.
Thank you. That's a beautiful introduction and that's an honour to be here. My name is Blythe Langford. I'm a personal freedom coach. I'm in Sydney, Australia. It is 8 p.m. at night and I help people discover their own sovereignty and internal freedom and create massive impact in the world, as well as having my own non-for-profit foundation that helps Indigenous cultures around the world.
Awesome. And how long have you been running that for?
For about 2 years. Yeah.
Right, okay, that's good. And I know that you're quite passionate about everything that we're going to be speaking about. So I'm actually really looking forward to this topic. And the thing is, guys, many of us have seen the sadness that's been going on in the world right now with all the mayhem. And the purpose of today's talk show is to empower and inspire you all and to just let you know your rights, what you are actually entitled to. So with that being said, we're going to get started straight with the discussion.
You're watching Boss Lady on Air on Reba TV via Facebook and YouTube with your host, Miss Shay Boss Lady.
That's right. Can everyone please remember to like, tag, and share the video? Okay, this is a really important subject. I'm going to hand it over to Blythe Langford right now, who's going to start off with the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I guess the first place to start is understanding a little bit about sovereignty, which I feel is really important and is especially at this moment in time. So I'm just going to run you through basics, but it can be a bit challenging and to keep up because we've been portrayed a way that we've all lived by our whole lives. And when something comes along and is new and different and challenges our own internal beliefs and our whole system that we have relied so heavily on, it is quite tricky for the brain to understand it and to comprehend it. And it comes, it can be quite challenging. So let me know when anything is like that, or when anything is like that, just take a deep breath and just allow the information to go in rather than getting caught up on things that maybe you're not understanding. Just allow it to just absorb in. So when it comes to sovereignty, sovereignty is actually we become our own, responsible for our own everything. We are the king and queen in our world. We are not dependent on anybody else. And when you are sovereign, then you can understand that you are in charge of everything in your world. You are not a slave to anybody. And I feel that this is really important at this moment in time, because if we all remembered our sovereign rights, then we wouldn't be in this place and everybody would be free and equal. And I feel that that is not the case at the moment, because the rulers of this world, the elite, whatever you want to call them, know about sovereignty and they are acting out their sovereign rights. And because we think that we need to be controlled by other people, when in fact they are merely administrators, because we haven't stood up and declared our sovereignty. And once we do...
I'm going to ask 2 questions. 1, what is sovereign rights? And 2, how do we declare it?
Okay, so sovereignty is literally just what are our sovereign rights, did you say?
Yes.
First question, what are our sovereign rights? So there is actually 2 laws going on at the exact same time. There is common law, LORE, which is sovereign law, and then there is legislation, which we all think we have to be a part of. When we are born, this is probably the easiest way to explain it. When we are born, we were all born as crown, and then we turn into sovereign for the next 2 weeks until we are registered into the system, and then we become public. So probably the best place to start is, we all think that the crown and the crown is the queen. We all think that we've all been like told that story, that the crown is the queen, when in actual fact we are all born as crown, and until we are registered into the system, we are sovereign citizens. So put it this way, like, how similar does this sound to maritime law? When we are been given birth to by our mother, from our mother, the doctor is waiting down at the birthing canal and at the dock for the crown. Like when the baby's coming out, they call it crown, right? So when we're coming out, we are actually crown. And then until we get indoctrinated into the system, and we've actually been tricked, our parents have been tricked into signing us into the system, we are all sovereign citizens. But once we become registered, then we actually are part of the system, and we have given up our sovereign rights. So
how we become registered is when our parents hand us over to the government, indirectly knowing by having a birth certificate.
exactly.
Which I just want to quickly explain to the audience. There was actually a situation that happened over here in the UK where there was a lady, she got her children taken off of her, except for her youngest child, because she didn't yet have a birth certificate for the youngest child. So therefore, they had no rights because they had no ownership over the child. So they make it illegal if you don't have a birth certificate, because they want to have those rights and controls over your children should they ever want to take them off of you. So yeah.
Exactly. And on exactly what you just said, when you said they make it illegal for us to not register, that's only because we don't know the right things to say. Because everybody goes into legislation, and we're all acting in this legislation, which isn't even the law of the land.
So what is the right thing to say then?
So if each country is a little bit different. In our country, we declare our sovereign rights by the Privacy Act. It literally covers everybody and everything, because in our Privacy Act, and I'm sure it's very similar in the UK, it's the same in New Zealand and very similar in America, that the Privacy Act really covers Crown citizens 100%. Like, it literally says in there that we don't have to abide by the legislation, that Crown is protected against all of the acts, that Crown, anybody that asks Crown any information is actually committing a crime, because all of those crimes, all of the information about us is private information, because legislation is in the public system. So if we understand that a sovereign citizen is actually a private citizen, we are, our whole body, our whole vessel, we are private. So even if we are in the public system, which is legislation and the LEY law, then they can't actually, if we declare that we are a sovereign citizen and we are acting according to the Privacy Act. In Australia, it's the Privacy Act of 1988. And if we are actually declaring our privacy, then it's actually illegal. It's a war crime for them to even ask us our private information. It's illegal for them to take it off us. They can, however, I have been taken to jail because I refused to give my private information. But they can't fine you with anything. They can lock you up in Australia for up to 4 hours, but then they have to let you go. But they can lock anybody up for 4 hours without them committing a crime. So you just need to declare your sovereignty, and really it all goes back to the Privacy Act that protects all Crown.
So in one short sentence, how would you describe what your sovereignty is, just so that we can get clarity on this before we move on?
Sovereignty is realizing that you are your own kingdom and you are wholly responsible, and nobody else can interfere with it ever unless you allow them in. So as soon as you allow them in, that's when you sort of stuff yourself up a little bit. So for example, when the policeman pulls you over and he says, give me your license, as soon as you hand over something or you obey to those rules, then you are not sovereign because you are in the public system. If you declare your sovereign rights and say no, or come back with a question like I would, are you asking for my private information right now? Then you're not letting anybody into your own kingdom, which is private.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting, because there's actual situations where people go to court and they refuse to stand inside the dock, and they actually put their birth certificate inside the dock. So they go, for example, they say, where's Blythe? Can Blythe please stand? And then they'll put the certificate in there and say, there's Blythe, you know, because once you enter their dock, you're entering their arena, and you've just given them permission to be abiding by under their rules now.
Yes. And on that as well, so there's two versions of you, right? So when you were actually born, you, and each country is quite different with their birth certificates. So, and the years that you were born, because it's changed over time. But for example, like when you were born, there is you and a twin. There is the flesh version of yourself, and then there is the dead version of yourself, which is actually the placenta. And so the flesh version of yourself, when you declare your sovereignty, you are crown. And the other version of yourself is the paper version of yourself, which is your given name and your family name, which your family name is always registered in. So as you're describing, like when people go to court, they put their birth certificate in there because that's their straw man, their paper version of themselves. Whereas they are the flesh version, which if they are a sovereign, then they are crown, and they don't have that name. That name is an illegal entity, or in our eyes, an illegal entity owned by a system that has entrapped and enslaved us. So, yep.
Yeah, I've got a question. I've noticed as well, on the birth certificate, the surname is written in capital letters. And there's some sort of loophole around that, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Even when somebody gets charged a bill, there's a way to not pay the bill if your name was written in capital letters.
Well, the capital letters is the paper version of yourself. So, yeah, there is many different ways, and each country is slightly different with how to not get fines and things like that, or how to not pay fines. Yeah, you, first of all, well, it depends. There's many different ways, but not giving over your license, not admitting and accepting the fine, because once you accept something, then you are literally saying, okay, I'm playing in your world now. I'm going to abide by that. Or there is other ways when you go into, like you're saying, you can go into court, and if you are the crown flesh version, rather than the capital letters that are the straw man, are the birth certificate, the paper version of yourself, if you're crown, then you are always protected. And it literally says in there that legislation, they cannot fine you, they cannot incriminate you, they cannot do any of these things. Like, that's literally what our Privacy Act in Australia does, that it protects crown on every single level. And so when we remember that we are crown, then everything, like these things don't abide by us, because we will adhere to common law rather than legislation, which is all just a way to make money off us.
Which is what I want to enter into the conversation now. So believe it or not, viewers, we actually don't have to have, like, you know, mortgages and driving license and things like that. I'll let Blythe explain a bit further in more detail. But once you get a driving license, you've actually now entered a contractual agreement under, you know, their rules and their system, because you, by your birthright, you're able to travel freely. When you start using their terminology like driving, then you're going to need a driver's license. But if you say you're traveling in a conveyor, then suddenly you don't need a driver's license to travel in a car. So there's like I don't know, do you want to go into a bit more, Blythe? Because there's so much I want to say about this.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, exactly. So if you're in okay, for example, when I was pulled over by the police and I didn't have my driver's license at that time, he said to me, you know, you're driving your vehicle. I said, no, I'm not. I am a passenger this is driving itself. So therefore, I'm not doing anything. I am merely a passenger. And he's like, your legs are da-da-da-da. I'm like, no, I'm merely walking. I am merely a passenger within this vehicle that is traveling. But there are so many different ways that you can explain it, because the government owns the road, but we own the land underneath the road. So if we understand that we are the crown, and the crown owns all the land, and the government only owns everything above the land, then they're the ones that are committing the crimes, not us.
Exactly. And also, to add to what you were saying, is when you use the terminology driving, that's actually, I think they call it commerce, which is,
yeah, exactly.
The only drivers that need driving license is a taxi driver, a bus driver, and any sort of driver that is driving to get paid. When you're not driving to get paid, you cannot use the word driving. You have to say you're traveling. And then you don't need a driving license. It's as simple as that. And I find this stuff so fascinating. Guys, go onto YouTube after the talk show and just type in law of the land, and you'll find out a lot more about what we're saying. Because there's even situations where people have got away without having a mortgage, because they're like, I own my land here, so why am I paying for what I already own? So, Life, do you want to go in more detail about the mortgage aspect?
Yeah, well, absolutely,
And
sure.
The bailiffs, because that is very interesting.
I don't know what about the bailiffs, so maybe that's got a different name that I would know it as. What do you mean by the bailiffs?
Like the law enforcement, they're not police. They're the ones that come to collect the money and kick you out if you're not.
Okay.
If you're not paying your mortgage, they come and say, you have to give us this money, or we're going to take some of your possessions to get the money.
Right. Okay. I mean, we are working on a few different ways of doing it, because there is multiple ways. That's the thing with sovereignty. As long as you can, because the court or anything like that, as long as you can, you've got within the legislation, if you are going to play within the legislation, there is so many loopholes within that. For example, like if you are going through the banking system, you can write before you're about to sign it, once everything has sort of gotten like to the end of the whole process, before you sign the final details. I think in most, it depends, but in most banks, there's on the forms, there's literally a part that you can tick that they would never highlight for you, which means that they are going to access your funds under your birth certificate to get that money. Because obviously, well, not obviously, but whenever we sign something, we think that we are borrowing that money from the bank or from the government or anything like that. No, we are creating that money for them. And then they will also double dip. Like once we sign something, like we're the ones that create the money, not the government or anything like that. Once we sign something, then that money is created, and then the bank or whoever we're borrowing it from, they actually double dip and get that back again. Because once they create a loss, that is really where the money is, and then they are able to like double dip and get another exact same amount put back into their bank or into their institution, whatever it is. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting ways to do with mortgages and things like that. So it depends, again, on which bits of legislation, because that's the thing, there's so many different little bits that you can try and use, which is exciting because there's so many options.
And there's a thing, I'm not sure what it's called, but there's this note that you can get that you write to the bank and give to them, and where they give you money, and you say like, I promise to pay this amount of money back in so many years later. And you could say it like years later when you won't even be living, like.
Yeah, right.
I
don't know about this one.
You don't?
I don't know about this one. You tell me. Tell me about this one. What's this one?
There's this note.
I know another way of doing it, but you tell me about this one.
I can't remember the name of what it's called. It's something note. But you can literally buy a car, you can buy a house, you can buy whatever, and the bank will give you money. And it's like a promise. It's like an IOU promise, but you do not have to put like a nearby date. You can put a ridiculous date, but just say like you promise to pay it, they have to give you that money.
I don't know about this one.
I'm into these little things, but I will look it up and I'll get back to you guys. So look out for the end of this talk show.
That's awesome.
What it's called. But even down to, so we've touched on mortgages. We've touched on not needing a driving license. Now, even the police, they're not allowed to actually search your vehicle unless they've got a warrant, because they're entering your property.
Or you give them permission, even if they've got a warrant. If you claim sovereignty, they can't come into it.
Really? Even if they do
war
have a
crime.
warrant?
They're committing a war crime if they do.
Interesting. I didn't know, because I know that if you're driving, people feel like they have to, because stop and search is the law and whatnot. The people feel like they have to let them search their cars, but I'm like, not unless they've got a warrant, because they're now illegally entering your property, just like they would need a warrant to enter your home. But
Yeah.
I didn't know if you declare your sovereignty, that also cancels them out.
Well, the Privacy Act saves you from everything. And also, you've got to understand what's actually happening when a cop is pulling you over. If you are a sovereign citizen, if you are a human being in a vehicle and an armed person comes up to you, that's a freaking ambush, right? You are literally in an ambush. Somebody like has a gun and they're like not even a meter away from you. Like, think about that. If they weren't in a police in a police uniform and a person comes up to you, if you're your own kingdom in a private world in this fake public system and somebody ambushes you, that is a crime. And then on top of that, they're going to request your private information, another crime. And then they're going to go into your vehicle. Holy moly. The trick is, the thing is that the police don't know any of this information. They are like people that just have aggression issues that have gone into a job because they want to serve and protect, which is also a front for I want a gun and like authority. So it's a really tricky one because they don't actually know any of this stuff.
Yes and no. They took an oath. They took an oath to protect our sovereignty. The police, the court, and the Queen, they took an oath to protect our sovereignty. So our sovereignty actually overrides the man-made laws. And but most of them don't know that. And there's a difference between a police officer and a policeman or policewoman. When you say like policeman and policewoman, they're here to protect and serve. When you say police officer, then there is part of the commerce. Just like when you say driving license, then you're going to need a driving license to travel. But if you say you're traveling, you don't. So it's when you use their terminology, that's when you get yourself in trouble. But I just want to make this clear to everyone watching. You can only get away with traveling in a car without needing a driver license legally by your natural birthright, as long as you don't breach the peace and cause any loss, harm, or injury to another person. But yeah, so do you want to touch more upon the difference between a police officer and a policeman?
I don't know about that. Like, that's a bit different to hear because maybe you can explain that one.
Yeah, literally, it's like when you enter the arena of terminology, just like if you go to the court and you step inside the dock, you're now under their jurisdiction and you have to now abide by their rules. But if you put your birth certificate inside the dock, you're not having to abide by their rules because you're still standing in your power, in your sovereignty. That's the same with a police officer and a policeman. The policeman is here to protect and serve us. They actually work for us. The policeman works for us, but the police officer is in part of the commerce, this corporate system, because they call it what is it? This country is registered as a company.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I was going to say. Because for us, it doesn't even matter what you call them, because they are a policeman, policewoman, or a police officer. It doesn't matter because they're in the public system and we're outside of the public system. But even if you are in the public system, they're a public servant and you're the public. And so the reason that we have kings and queens and government and let's go kings and queens first, is because we haven't declared ourselves the kings and queens. So they have, until the sovereign citizen rises and we take back that ownership. And once we do, then the kings and queens come down because the real sovereigns have stepped up, right? So And so there is that regard, but then also these are all public offices. So you might, public servants, sorry, whether it be a government, a president, a prime minister, a police officer, any of those things, they are all public servants. And once they and us realize that we are in charge of them, then everything shifts. That's why this moment in time is so exciting, because people are realizing our power, and then everything will really start to shift.
And with that being said, we've got a comment from Jeanette. I just want to say, Jeanette, this is not something applicable to people in the UK only. Blythe lives in Australia. This is applicable to every human being that is on earth, irrespective of whatever country you're from. This is our natural birthright, which Blythe calls your sovereignty. And this is what the discussion of the show is about, your sovereignty. And we're also going to be talking about ley lines. Just look it up, just type in law of the land, okay, Jeanette, and you'll find a lot of information on there on YouTube and Google that will actually let you know this is your birthright too. You can protect yourselves too. You don't have to pay for a mortgage. Like a lot of the things that they're giving to us, even when they send the bill, there's certain terminologies that they use where they're not saying it's mandatory. There's certain terminology that they use where they're actually asking you, can you pay this? Rather than saying you have to and you've got no other choice, like you must. So yeah, check all that out. No, it's fine. Listen, we're all learning. There's still more I need to know about this. Because I actually know the law of the land is actually different from the law of the sea as well.
Yeah, maritime law and common law, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of law is, like in Australia, for example, our government only owns 200 meters out of our coastline. They don't even actually own anything on the land. 200 meters out. So that's why it is maritime law, because they literally take us offshore to bring us onshore, because then that's where they can register us. Like, this is all in theory. Like, I mean, it's not really a physical thing. They don't take us off, but you know what I mean? Like, they take us off the dock, the doctor births us. That's what I was talking about, that it's like based on maritime law, right? Because then they're taking us out, like, you know what I mean? It's all tricks in the words. But yeah, so they have no real ruling here. It's only, the only ruling they have is the ones that they, like, we allow. So we give them, yeah.
So what you're saying is they own a certain amount of distance from the land to the sea, so they can only go.
That's our country. Yeah,
that's our country. I always wondered what happens if somebody's half on land, half on sea. If somebody's standing on the sand but also standing on the sea. I always wondered, like, does the law still apply to them? Because, you know.
Well, it also depends as well, because some people, when they are on land, they just adhere to maritime law. So it depends on the words again. So that's why all these different laws are very interesting, because it all just depends on your language.
Interesting. Okay, I'm liking this discussion.
It's fun, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where do you want to take this next before we move on to the ley lines?
I think, yeah, what you said before, like, it doesn't matter what country you're in. We have all been registered at birth, but we have been coerced into that. Our parents were coerced into that. So according to the Privacy Act, they have committed a crime by making our parents be tricked into doing that. So we never actually agreed to that. So declaring your sovereignty is very simple. You just literally declare your sovereignty. And then when anybody, like, asks anything of you, then you just use the Privacy Act in your favor and make them aware of your sovereign rights and that they're committing war crimes, and that, yeah, that's sort of how you go with that. But then also, if we know the loopholes in the system, then we don't actually need to be, we can have our paper version of ourselves playing in their arena for our benefit, and we can be a sovereign flesh version of ourselves outside of that as well, because there is benefits inside that system, like to do with tax and all of those sort of things. And also there are some ways that we, like, if some people have jobs or that sort of thing, they need a paper version of themselves potentially to be in there. Now, there's many trains of thoughts on this. I've got multiple mentors, so some of them believe something, some of them believe another thing. So it just depends on what you actually want to do. But you work with both systems to your advantage, because you are, the public system is there for us, which are actually sovereigns, just waiting for our us to decide that we're in our own kingdom or queendom, right? And then we can also declare our sovereign rights outside of the system as well as private people. So they created two versions of ourselves, so why not use them to our advantage?
I absolutely agree, and I would encourage people to look more into this, because we've only got so long on the show, but definitely look into this, what we're talking about. So like what Blythe just said, you can take advantage of the different laws and know the difference between, is it common law and what's the other one?
And legislation, the legislation that's there.
Legislation, the ones that they make up and try to put upon us. And remember, our birthright, which is common law, actually overrides that. Okay, so I want to quickly say before we move on to the second part of the show, is you made a really good point. You said something along the lines that this has all been put upon our parents and they didn't know any better and they just followed through. We're both vegans, okay? And that's the same thing that happened with growing up eating meat as well, like eating animals. You know, it's just something that just got passed down. You don't know any better until suddenly the penny just drops and the light bulb goes and you just realize, what am I doing? I'm eating alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, love that. So we're going to go into the second part of the show now, guys, where we're going to be talking about the importance of ley lines and how it can actually help you.
You're watching Boss Lady on Air on Reba TV via Facebook and YouTube with your host, Miss Shay, Boss Lady.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Now I had to manually take it off.
Okay, there we go.
I wonder if certain people don't want us to get this message out. It's coming out one way or the other. Trust me on that one. Okay.
Exactly.
So Blythe, we're going to talk about now the importance of ley lines. Now, this is something I actually don't know about, unlike the first part of the talk show. So I'm actually a student right now, and I'm very much open to listening to what you've got to say, because I know ley lines are very important. I know they're connected around the earth, certain parts of the earth. I know that the earth has chakras, just like the body has chakras and things like that, but I don't know past that. So over to you, Blythe.
Okay, well, I have worked with a few different, not worked with, but been shared and blessed with information from some Indigenous people on multiple different countries, continents, but mostly it's from tuning in with the land and just being really lucky to be like an earth intuitive, and that's where I get my guidance from. So the ley lines, or song lines as they're called in Australia, are literally we've got Mother Earth, and they're literally like her veins around the earth and where the energy is strongest, and where the Indigenous cultures would get guidance on where to go or how to go, or be able to use their voice and song to be able to navigate physically across the land, but then also be able to tune into that and get messages from family or friends or whoever that were far away. So they were literally using the or not using, because they are we are all the earth, right? So literally being able to be connected to these ley lines, to these energy veins around the world, and get guidance from them. And so with the ley lines, when imagine if they're all literally lines around the world, but imagine when two of them cross over each other, the energy is doubled. Or if a few of them cross over, the energy is extremely intense. There's a lot more room for people to get bigger messages or bigger upgrades within themselves, or raise their consciousness, or connect with spirit more, or whatever it is that's going on for them. So that's places like in Australia, we've got Catajuda or Uluru. You guys have got in, what are your ones? Avebury? Sorry, Glastonbury.
Is it Glastonbury?
Glastonbury and Avebury, something like that, or where the pyramids are, and there's multiple ones all around the world. And you'll probably, if you do look into it, you'll come to realize that a long time ago, a lot of religions and churches are built on really strong ley lines, because they knew that, and they were trying to like increase the vibration and the frequency to have more people come into their church or followers and connect with God, spirit, even more as well.
I do know that about the pyramids. I do know that the pyramids were actually planted like in certain locations to connect with like the stars and things like that. It was like an energy central point. It wasn't just randomly built in a certain spot. They knew where to build the pyramids. So I did hear something about that about the churches as well, but I didn't know too much. And it can draw like a symmetrical pattern or some sort of a pattern where the different churches are, and it connects, I think, maybe to the ley lines. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they use the ley lines, and there's good thoughts about it, and then there's bad thoughts about it as well. So about what it's being used for and how they're harnessing that energy. So yeah, there's multiple trains of thoughts and on that, and something that everybody should look into themselves and then make up their own mind about. But yeah, it is very interesting, and because so when you go back like a long time ago, you know, there was 13 families that sort of ruled the world and that sort of thing. And these families actually went off to multiple islands around the world and had their bloodline go through other islands. Like I know they've done it in New Zealand and all around the South Pacific around here, and would go and find the kings and queens or chiefs of certain villages and have babies with them, so that their bloodline was throughout other cultures as well, because they wanted their seeds everywhere. And so that's how they were able to learn all these different cultures and things like that, and learn where the energy was and learn how to use it to their advantage, maybe for darker purposes, as opposed to the native cultures that were using it for beautiful, sovereign, like connections with earth and, you know, like that sort of thing. So it's been manipulated in and worked with on both sides. So yeah, it's very interesting. So that's why there's certain blood, like, you know, I've got like in New Zealand, there's like the Rothschilds mixed with Maori people, and it's just very interesting when it goes back quite far. So yeah, it's very interesting, that sort of work.
And what I find quite interesting as well is that the earth, because for anyone watching that's wondering, is energy actually real? Everything is energy, us, the sun, everything. The earth actually has a heartbeat of just about around 8 hertz. The rose quartz crystal, which is one of the crystal rings I'm wearing now, I don't know if you can see it, is actually 350 hertz. Humans' bodies are roughly between 67 to 77 hertz when we're healthy. And if somebody's got cancer, their hertz drop down to 47 hertz and 42 hertz, like really low. So money's even got energy. Money's even got a level of hertz as well. It's all frequencies, all energy. So when you hear Blythe talking about the ley lines and the power and the energy there, that is actually something that is actually real, whether we're aware of it or not. So I can only encourage you guys to check it out and do your research on it, as I will be also as well, because I have looked into some of this stuff in the past. So I just know a little bit of this, but not too much. And yeah, the energy is something real. So what happens, Blythe, when somebody goes on a ley line and connects with that energy there? You said they're able to get downloads.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when I didn't even, my first experience with a ley line, I was in Africa, South Africa, and I like just went in to go and do like a meditation. And this is when it all started for me. I just went in to go and do a meditation. I normally do 15 minutes every morning. Anyway, I did this meditation. 3 hours later, I came out. I was like, what the actual just happened? Like I connected with the ancestors of that land. I was getting communication with like the local tribes, and just they were sharing information with me. It was like the most amazing experience of my life. So that changed everything for me. So then leaving that and coming back to Australia, I now connect with the land as much as I can. I'll go and do my meditations, and I will literally bury my feet in the sand so that I'm connected to Mother Earth, and then I'll get messages or downloads or be able to reduce any inflammation in my brain. The next time I was like at Uluru, and I got massive downloads. Literally just went for a run, didn't realize I was on the ley lines, and I'm just getting like downloads, like information. Ooh. When I say downloads, just information about like what had gone on in my family and things that I wasn't even aware of. And it was like, you need to look into this. And then, yeah, just all these, it was amazing. So yeah, when I've gone to certain sacred sites, like, and I didn't even know that they were on ley lines, just the information that comes through is like a lot. Like I've had quite a bit of in Australia, quite a bit overseas, just come back from Mexico, got so much over there in, you know, the Mayan ruins and things like that. And it's like these cultures have been using the ley lines all this time to whatever their intentions were. They were having different, like, you know, they might have meditation center somewhere, they might have like a sacrificial place somewhere, they might have a place where mothers give birth, or they might have a place where people go to pass away, or like all different things, because they're working with the ley lines, they're working with the energy of Mother Earth, because they don't see themselves as separate from Mother Earth. We are just expressions of her, right?
So I've got a question. I've just got a thought that's coming to my mind. Is the ley lines the same thing as the Earth's conscious grid?
Well, I guess it would be heightened there. Yeah. And it's, yeah, you could look at it like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, see, that's the thing. It's how, there's no one thing. It's whatever it means to you, right? Like it could be her, it could be, yeah, it's just where her energy is heightened. So everything can happen.
In that case, then, what I'm understanding is, because the Earth's conscious grid is like where we can all be on the land in different parts of the world, especially like back in the day before technology was about and before telephones was about, and one person will start doing something one way, and then the other person in the complete opposite side of the world, who had no way of hearing from them, started to do the same thing that they're doing as well in the same way. So because we're connecting with our feet on the earth, connecting back to the Earth's conscious grid. And now what you're saying on top of that is certain parts of the earth actually have ley lines, which even more heightens that consciousness, and therefore being able to get downloads.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing, like, you know, you've probably heard some mums say, I always know what's going on with my kids. Like, we're just really connected. Like, I can feel if anything's going on with them. And it's exactly the same. Mother Earth always knows what's going on with us. We've just forgotten to communicate with her, and that we are never separate, you know? So that's all it is. And because we are dulled down to the frequency of Mother Earth, when we go to these places, we get amazing gifts. But if we were more tuned in, you could do this anywhere. Yes, it would be heightened in those areas, but if you went down to your local park and put your bare feet on the ground and communicated with the land every day, and I just mean sitting in stillness and listening, you will get downloads. You can't avoid it. Like, it's just what happens.
Yeah, do you know what? The guy, the KFC guy, Colonel.
Yeah.
Guy, his story is actually so powerful. He was in a lot of debt, and he was getting low income benefit, and he wanted to kill himself. So he went out into nature, not thinking anything of it, and he sat on against a tree with his back against the tree, and he went to write his suicide note. And
on the tree or in the paper?
Yeah, with his back against the tree. Yeah. And as he was going to write his suicide note, he started to get downloads because he was out in nature, connecting to the earth. And he then started. That's how he got his idea to get the chicken recipes. He's like, how can I make money? That's when he thought of it. Like, I've heard the story be told so many times, but because I'm aware of like the power of the earth, I was like, it's because he was in nature. That's what it was. He was getting downloads.
He was getting downloads. And see, that's the thing. We've forgotten how intelligent the earth is. Like, the trees give us life. They give us oxygen. And every single culture knows of tree magic. So if he is against a tree and they want to give us life, and they can feel his energy and his vibration, they are there to support him. And whilst he's writing on a piece of paper, which is tree, right? Like, look at all the ancient cultures. They all write on bark. That's actually like manifestation tool. So if he's against a tree and he's writing on tree, he's literally like communicating with the nature, right?
You just elevated that story. You just elevated that story for me. Oh my gosh. Because I hear people tell it on level 1. I'm like, no, I've taken it to level 2. You just taken it to level 3 now. For real, he's writing on paper. So one, he's out in nature. That's why he's getting downloads. But like you said, he's writing on paper, and the tree and the paper is one and everything. You know what? I love the trees because I love nature. My posts are always about nature because you know what? We're in two-way connection with the tree, a two-way communication. The trees give us oxygen and we give them carbon dioxide. So when what we breathe out is what they breathe in, and vice versa, like a two-way communication. And I absolutely love it. And there's only one chemical difference that makes our blood red and theirs green. You know, we're both made from the dust of the ground, like the Bible teaches. So we're
Exactly.
from the same place. You know,
Yes.
that is so powerful. Oh my God. I didn't know about tree magic.
Yeah. So when you're journaling or anything like that, tune into the trees, right? And allow that to be a manifestation tool. And like I even with my journal, I've got one side that is the work that I want to manifest. And then the other column, I leave it to spirit, or you'd say God. Like,
Yeah.
this is what God is. God's like, I'm leaving that with you today, spirit. Like, you work on that one for me. I can't wait to see how that's going to come about. How exciting, because it's working with the tree spirit as well as God, creator, right? So it's like you get to play. Like, life's a game. Like, we get to play with it.
You know what? Being outside in nature is so beautiful, and I can imagine the ley lines will amplify it, because when
Yes.
what you was talking about, for those who are watching, when you actually either take your shoes off and connect back to the earth, like the soil, the sand, or the grass, or even touch it with the palm of your hand or the sole of your feet, or even touch a tree with the palm of your hand, then that is what you call grounding. And that's scientifically proven to actually work. And it gets rid of like stress, certain illnesses in the body. And can you imagine with what Blythe is saying, being out at where the ley lines are and you're grounding? I mean,
Exactly. Like, we are all little expressions of the earth. So as if our mother earth, like, there is literally, like, I can't remember what it's called, but on the soles of the feet there's like electrodes or something like that, and it's got a certain charge to it, and it's positively charged, and then earth is negatively charged, or vice versa, and it literally draws the inflammation out of our body. Like, that's why we feel calmer in nature, because Mother Nature is literally drawing any inflammation out of our mind, our body. Yeah.
That's a fact. And that's why the government make everybody wear shoes with rubber on there, because rubber disconnects you from that. You know
And why
what?
there's pavements everywhere.
Yes, concrete. That's why Bob Marley called it the concrete jungle. Because guys, look at it like this, right? You know, when a car, back in the day, when a car was about to, like when a car died, they'll take out the car jumper thing and connect it from one car to the other, and they'll jump start it with electric. Or like when somebody's in a hospital and they're about to die and they resuscitate them and they say Claire, and they put it on their chest, and it gives them like a boost of electric to bring life back into them. Like, that's the same way like the earth works, because the earth has electricity and we have electricity running through our body. And like Blythe was saying, the earth actually takes away the negative electricity in our body. And there was a guy who done an experiment on this, and it's everywhere on YouTube. You can type it in. And what he done, he was holding one of those, I don't know what the guys call it. It was one of those meter things to check when you're going to check when your light bulb is about to go. And somebody held it in her hands, and she was like 140 something. She had high electricity running through her body, and she had shoes on, but she was on the ground. The person who had shoes off went all the way to 0. And when the person with shoes off touched the person with the shoes, they both went to 0, because one of them the one with shoes on got grounded with the one that never has shoes on. And that's what the tree does to us. Even if we've got our shoes on, but we're touching the tree with the palm of our hands, the tree is letting us ground. So I took it at next level, and I was thinking, oh, so when somebody is like got their dog in the park or their cat on the grass at home in the garden, and they're touching their cat or their dog, they're grounding through their pet.
That's true. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
They are grounding through their pet. And this can, because what people do now is they sell like grounding mats. I don't know if you've seen those, Beth. Grounding mats.
Yeah. They've had them for years. They're awesome.
Okay, I'll say I'm new to, like, I only know about this the last 4 years or so since I've been vegan. Like, like you got these grounding mats, guys, where you can actually sleep on it if you can't actually sleep outside in nature in a tent, and it will do the same job that being outside in nature does. So we've got our last 11 minutes of the show. Time always flies, like on the show.
I know, it's so good. And but you can find things that go onto you. Sorry.
I had to enhance on the nature aspect with Blythe, because she took about ley. But I would love to hear more about ley lines from your perspective.
So, well, yeah, so like when you realize that they are the communication point of the earth, and it's literally like our bloodline. When you think about it like that, it's literally our bloodline, because our body, our bones is the earth, our water, the water inside of us is our blood, you know, like we are the earth, we are elemental beings. Earth, body, fire is our passion, water is our blood, air is our breath, right? The 4 elements. And so we are never disconnected from Mother Earth. It's within us always. And if like all the ancient cultures knew this, and that's why if you notice that similarities within ancient, like within the original cultures, they would use a lot of song and dance and ceremony and ritual and that sort of thing. And they would literally be doing that, not to just play and sing. They're like creating freaking magic, right? Like real magic. So I'm talking transcending consciousness. But then there is also many people, like the indigenous cultures, that haven't been able to share any of this stuff with us, because previously they've all been killed, because the people that indoctrinate us and register us all at birth don't want any of this information, because then we wouldn't need anything, right? Like I'm talking like transcend body as well. Like that is a common thing of the ancients, right? It's also used to work with the weather. You can manipulate weather. I'm okay with the weather. I'm good with that one. Like you can manipulate the weather. You can change things as well. Like you can like shape shift what is actually in front of you. Like a pen could become a book. A rabbit could become a dog. Like this is what the ancient cultures have the abilities to do. But because people have come in and just killed their culture, a lot of it gets lost, or a lot of it stays secret, because this information is so powerful.
Oh, that is awesome. And this is all through being connected where the ley lines are.
Everything's heightened on the ley lines, yes. And so how the original people, like they would use dowsing, you know, dowsing, like where you get, it's like on a string and it's got like generally like a little thing at the bottom, and you can dowse and find where the ley lines are if you don't already know. And so they would dowse to find where, well, most people already, like the original people knew they're that connected to the earth, right? But they would find where the ley lines are, and then a lot of them, I mean, in our country, would sing. That's why they're called song lines instead of ley lines. They would sing or like communicate through vibrational frequency of like sound, and they'd be able to find their way or get guidance or like communicate on a whole expanded level of consciousness. Yes.
And you know what you were saying earlier on about tree magic and writing on paper? That's actually biblically backed up as well, because and those who are not Christians as well, but it's biblically backed up, because it's that when you're writing, you're spelling, you're telling a spell, like yeah. So because the Bible teaches there's power in the tongue, so there's power when we speak things into existence. Even our thoughts are vibration as well. And so to write, and so imagine to sing now, and you're with it, and you're all joining together and doing the same, you know, the same melody. I can imagine how much more that got heightened being on the ley line, manifest.
Yeah, exactly, and it does. And like the ley lines are super powerful, but when we remember that we are never separate from Mother Earth, we can tune into that vibrational frequency no matter where we are. Right? And that's what we all need to remember, that we don't need to go anywhere or be anything. We are the earth, right? Our body is the earth. So if we connect into that vibration, and the ancient cultures, they don't have the same like times and all those sort of things as us. They're on a different frequency, right? Because we have been enslaved into this frequency of like 1260 time. They're on a different time frame of 1320 time, which is actually a different frequency completely. And it's when we're in our happy and our bliss state. That's like natural frequency. The other states are not. They're trained, indoctrinated states. So if we can get onto that state, remember that we are the body, and then we manifest at that time, or work with a tree spirit or anything like that, we can totally tune in, because Mother Nature is not separate from us. So we can communicate with her, and she will find us wherever we are and communicate with us, or she will find us and help us, or yeah. So it is definitely heightened at those areas, but don't worry if you're not in those spaces. Like, work with what you've got, tune in, like imagine yourself rooting into the ground, into the earth, and connecting with her core and drawing that energy up into your, like, into your body. Like, that's there available for you at all time. Feel your feet, imagine them rooting into the ground.
That is so powerful. Okay, so we've got our last 6 minutes left of the show, sadly. So I'm just gonna let you do a quick, recap on the ley lines and just kind of wrap up with any last thoughts that you want to say on that. Also, viewers, thank you so much to everyone that's been tuning in. Please remember to like, tag, and share the video. And thank you for everyone that's left a comment. I'll see we've got more comments as well.
Thank you, people.
Okay, so I found it interesting. Jeanette also wants to know original people.
Original people, I don't, like, in Australia, you've probably heard of Aboriginal people. They are not abnormal. They are the original people. So everything, like you said, there's spells in everything. They have created like actual subconscious put downs of original people. So original people is anybody who were the custodians of that land, the people that were there first, the people that are super connected to the earth, and those. That's pretty much what I mean by original people.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, and I mean, yeah, I don't know how much I want to go into that. Actually, I won't say nothing. But yeah, that's very true. I will just say that. We don't have time. We've got 4 minutes left.
Oh no, that sounds so interesting. What were you going to say? Say it real quick.
Okay, well, what I was going to say is basically every race comes from the black race and is from the motherland. And so we literally built so much, and there was so much knowledge that we knew, which is what Blythe was saying, that a lot of the knowledge got lost when we mixed our cultures, and when our culture got broken down, and then we got mixed up in everything, taken away from it, and then we adapt to the way our culture now is. We've lost so much of what we originally once knew. But as Blythe was saying so beautifully, like when you actually connect to the ley lines, she actually even got like deep downloads to let her know about her family history and everything and whatnot. But yeah, that information is out there when you're open to receive it and you're in that space of learning.
Can I add to that as well? Yeah, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we are all from original people, and if somebody's got whiter skin than somebody else, they're just different shades of brown. It's because they move further away from the equator. That's it. All of our grandmas are black. Like, that's it. Like, there's no denying that, And so original people, whether it be Africa or Australia, it's that same. It's the same darkest cultures are the ones that were closest to the equator. That's literally it.
Yeah,
so
the sun is close to the equator. And as Blythe is saying, basically we're all melanated. Every single race has melanin, and some are got more melanin and some less, but we all are melanated beings. Yep. So racism is really stupid.
Exactly. It was only created in the 1400s because they couldn't tell what religions people were, so they used the color of their skin to kill people instead. It's the most stupidest thing ever, and we've just been trained and taught that. It's ridiculous.
So what we're going to do now is Blythe has actually got a quote that she wants to leave you guys with. So Blythe, you want to share your quote?
Yeah. We are the change in the world. Like, everything starts with us. Everything starts with us. Whatever we want to see in the world, it starts within us. So never think that you are separate from, never think that you are not important. It all starts with you.
That is absolutely so beautiful. Guys, if you agree with that, drop some hearts in the chat, please, and some thumbs up. Show Blythe some love. Thank you so much to everyone in Australia, Sydney, Australia, that's been tuning in, and everyone in the UK. I hope you guys was able to get a lot of value from this talk show. We spoke about and covered so much topics, guys. Have we got some hearts coming through? Thanks for sharing. You're so welcome.
Thank you. Love you guys. Yes, thank you so much. And share this with anybody that needs a little bit of they're feeling a little bit stuck at the moment, or it's a bit hard, or anybody that's like, anything. Racist as well. They need to understand what's real.
Yeah, and you know what, we spoke about, the law of the land, your sovereignty, your rights, your power. We spoke about the ley lines, and there's so much. So if you never got to catch the beginning of the show, I would definitely encourage you to watch the replay. I'm back every Sunday of the month. This one we've done at 11 o'clock to accommodate the Australian audience, but all the talk shows are always at 8:30 p.m. UK time. So every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. UK time, catch me back where I'm with a group of people. Every second Sunday of the month, we have a one-on-one special like we're doing today with Life. The first Sunday of the month is a Christian talk show. And the second Sunday of the month is a one-on-one. The third Sunday, which is next week, is a Goddess interactive talk show. And then the fourth Sunday of the month is Sex, Love, and Relationships, which is a spicy one.
Nice.
I want to thank everyone who's been tuning in. I want to thank all our viewers, our audience, everyone that's contributed to the show. Even the silent viewers, I want to thank Blythe. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to be your host, Miss Shay Boss Lady. I'll see you again next week Sunday at 8:30 p.m. UK time. Peace out.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, you trying to do the boss lady pose? I can't point your hand out, so get with it. You should already know. Let's say hello with me. Boss lady pose. Wait a minute, you trying to do the boss lady pose? See, I can't point your hand out, so dip with it. You should already know. Let's say along with me. Boss lady pose. Boss lady pose.
That was awesome.